Thank you so much, Charlotte. We appreciate the opportunity this afternoon to spend time with all of you, and look forward to sharing with you the great news of WorkMax. So first of all, one of the things that's unique about WorkMax is it is a cloud platform solution. And so what that means is it is a truly web-based product. It can be accessed from any browser, and it is hosted on Amazon Web Services. So AWS is the acronym that most people are familiar with. And within the platform at this time, although we continue to build out new modules, we currently have time and labor tracking along with productivity. And then we have assets or equipment management. And then we have a digital forms tool. So between the cloud platform, each of these modules can operate completely independently. So if for an organization, all they needed was forms, they could use WorkMax Forms and would not have to have the time or assets module. Or if you're simply looking to track your labor in the field, that's something that this could handle completely. So, so each module works together, but they do play nice and integrate together as well, which I'll go into a little bit later here as we get into the software. One of the other things that that makes WorkMax a little bit unique within the industry is the fact that we come from construction-focused background where, again, for over a dozen years, we've had integrations with the Sage products, both Sage 100 Contractor, formerly Master Builder, and Sage 300 CRE, also known as Timberline. One of the key things that we want to focus on today is, of course, allocating the costs that are being tracked in the field in a more precise and accurate manner on a daily basis. The product will also help, of course, reduce those job costing errors that you experience when people are putting in the wrong code or keying something incorrectly or maybe illegibly writing something, typos, spelling errors, etc. Because we are pulling data from Sage automatically in both systems, both 100 and 300 CRE, there are no opportunities for those codes to get transposed or misread. And then, of course, because we're also linked up with Sage's asset modules, we're able to pull those particular assets and the associated codes properly in from those systems and make sure that, again, that inventory is exactly the same and is maintained in a live manner. Many companies that we speak with are using some type of spreadsheets or paper to track these processes. So the benefit here is you have a mobile application that is a living, breathing organism connected to your Sage database. So as you inactivate or as you maybe pull an asset out of production for service, etc., you won't have people costing time or labor or production against something that is not even working out in the field. So we've got a few poll questions that we have asked, and I will turn the time over for just a minute for Charlotte to kind of read through those and maybe the results, and those will help kind of key off of the direction that we lean some of the discussion today.
All right, so we just launched the poll, and the question is, which has the biggest impact on your job cost accuracy? Illegible handwriting, too many options for jobs and cost codes, too time-consuming to allocate time and tasks in the field, or projects and cost codes not in sync with accounting system. So take just a couple of seconds there and complete that poll for us, please. We'll give it just a couple more seconds there. Looks like we've got 75% of people voting. All right, so it looks like 33% said illegible handwriting and 67% said too time-consuming to allocate time and tasks in the field.
All right, great. Are there any other poll questions, or is that it, Charlotte?
We've got 2 more polls. Would you like me to go ahead and launch them?
Okay. Yes, if you would, and then yeah, I've got a slide I'll talk about I'll key in on the ones that were brought up, so thank you.
Sure. All right, let me go ahead and launch that second poll. And that one is, how are you tracking your employees' time? Paper, spreadsheets, swipe cards or punch clocks, time tracking software, or other? All right, and it looks like 67% said paper and 33% said other. And then I can go ahead and launch the last poll here. All right, and it is, how are you tracking your tools and equipment? Paper, spreadsheets, asset tracking software, or other? All right. And it looks like 33% said asset tracking software and 67% said other. And that is it for the poll.
Great. Perfect. Thank you so much, Charlotte. That's helpful, and I very much appreciate that. In light of those things, I'll kind of address those more specifically as we go through the demonstration and presentation. So it sounds like obviously the issue is the field's busy. They don't have time to necessarily cost code things or track things in a real-time manner, and so they kind of plan on getting to them later. Of course, that's where we run into issues like this first bullet, when the data structure between the time and equipment software doesn't match Sage. So if we're on spreadsheets or paper, those can get out of sync very quickly. So an integration becomes a very critical piece to that. And that also adds to why companies aren't often tracking this information accurately, because the tools that they're using are not as effective. Kind of like the old-fashioned Phillips screwdriver versus a brand new DeWalt drill with 2 backup batteries. Completely different tool set. Both can accomplish the same job of driving a screw or drilling a hole into something. But of course, one is much more efficient and powerful and more desired to use. So the other thing, we talked about taking too much time and the data structure, but a lot of times the data is not available on a given spreadsheet, possibly. If you've changed or added work orders, hired new employees, maybe they're making paper copies. I've seen that commonly. There's actually a paper timesheet that's printed out and then mass copied. And then somebody new is hired, people are writing things in. And then if it's a picture or a fax or a scanned email, all these various methods are, again, just very inefficient and very costly and time consuming, just from a management of the data standpoint. Overall, the real sum of that is that there's really no integration with that business system without manual intervention. Of course, if you're dealing with paper, then you're limited to the size of the sheet. And so now you've got multiple pieces of paper maybe to accomplish the same thing, where a digital tool can present the appropriate list, the short list, so to speak, and not everything else is unnecessary. And then, of course, the final bullet here, it can be difficult to track those moving assets or employees as they're bouncing from one job to another, which foreman is logging the time, who is costing that, who's approving it. And then at the end of the day, if there's an issue, how does the office know who to track down to confirm what that data is? And so WorkMax provides a tool to solve each of these bullets very simply with the integration, and then, of course, a very friendly mobile application, which we'll show here in just a few minutes. Now, some of the things that come up is, of course, we've got this great tool, it's integrated with Sage, but how do I confirm or know that the data is accurate? What tools do I have to ensure and instill confidence in the information that's coming in? So a couple of things, and again, the software will show specifically, we have true facial recognition. We actually have been awarded a patent on this functionality in the way that we process the data. And so that is one surefire way to ensure that that employee truly is the person that is logging time for that shift. We also have GPS and GEO-FENCE capability, so we can ensure that not only are the employees being accurate with their location, but again, if they're not on site when they're logging time to a particular project, you'll be able to confirm where they're at. Maybe they did cost time to the wrong job. That's a very quick adjustment in the software, and you'll be able to identify that right away. So even if it's not anything nefarious or that they're trying to be dishonest, it does make sure that you can fix that accurately without even having to necessarily talk to the person. Then, of course, on the time tracking side, the methods that we were able to log and track labor in WorkMax, there's 3 different major workflows that are all unique. You can use any of those or all of them or a mix. And again, I'll show you kind of what we've done based on the feedback of our thousands of customers historically that makes that easier for the field. I know again, 2 or 3/4 of the poll stated that it was just too difficult to track. And so I think we can demonstrate how simply that we can accomplish this for you. Of course, job cost errors with the Sage integration, we're going to present the right cost codes on the right job at the right time. So they'll be looking at the proper list. And because of that data connection that we have to the Sage databases, everything originates in Sage, we collect it in the field, we feed it back, Sage gets populated with the exact same code that was determined accurate and correct from the beginning. And then the last thing to ensure accuracy, on our mobile application, if an employee is transferring equipment or tools, or even maybe it's even a laptop, or you're tracking other things besides heavy equipment or generators or compressors or drills, those can be digitally transferred from one individual on their phone or tablet to another. And once that's accepted, then the cloud system is updated, and we have the ability to show the office or management where those assets are located at any given time based on those transfers. So to key in on one of the powerful innovations that we've come up with over the last couple of years with WorkMax is facial recognition. And what that does is you'll see here on the in and the out punch at this, I'm clocked out for lunch here at 11:45 a.m. I'm a 98% match with that image with the source that the database has. If for some reason I tried to punch in for a different employee and had the wrong source image that doesn't match me, you're going to see a score that is, again, well below this 85% threshold that you have the ability to customize to your business. So although I have the same barber, or at least the barber with the same skills as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I clearly do not have all of the other same facial characteristics as Dwayne. So everybody's got to have a dream, but in this case, it's epic failure. So the other thing, aside from the accuracy of facial recognition, is we do want to allow for employees to simply manage that time, even if it's after the fact. I know, again, in the poll question, the challenge and difficulty of tracking the time was one of the reasons why companies are not on an automated system. What this allows is when an individual or crew punches in the morning and out at the end of the day, with WorkMax allocation, you can go into, and actually we have a drag bar where they can move this to the proper time. And so you're basically breaking up that shift to different cost codes. This is rough framing, got finished carpentry in the middle, and maybe at the end after lunch, they finish the day with finished carpentry as well. So, so that can be both punch in and out accurately in the morning and end of the day, and then after the fact allocation, as we show here. The other thing that was brought up in the poll question regarding the integration or the processes or tools that are being used, we feel like it's critical in WorkMax to connect to the systems that you already have in place. Number one, your field, your management personnel, people in payroll, they're familiar with the reports. They're familiar with the process that you're currently dealing with. And so with WorkMax, what we want to do is mirror that process as simply as possible within the modules of the platform, and so that they're looking at the same data, but it is in a workflow. It's not in a flat spreadsheet, or it's not on an inactive piece of paper that's printed, but it's actually something that is connected to Sage. And so whether it's payroll and accounting, whether it's something in a CRM or an HR system, or some other project management solution, we want to share the information from Sage that we've collected and added shift alerts, forms, photos, reports, other things too, with those other systems, make them available so that you're using all of the data that you have, but keying in from one central location that is connected to those systems. The other thing we talked about, GPS being one of the bullet items for accuracy. And what that looks like is on a mobile device, when an employee picks their job that they're working on, we have job information, even a navigate to button on the project. But if I pick this project at the Don Cesar Hotel in St. Pete Beach right here, and I punch in or out, as long as I'm within this GEO-FENCE, there will not be any alerts in the system that there's an infraction. I have the ability to set the radius right here. It's a mile. So you can see there's a mile radius around the project. I can make that 1/10 of a mile if I want it to be very accurate and ratchet it down. Or if I'm working on highway or something else that's a larger project, I can expand that out as is appropriate. Of course, with the integrations that we're talking about, we have a couple of different approaches, and that is because Sage 100 Contractor has an API or an application provided interface. We are programmed to that directly, and so when you fill out data and collect time and approve it within your WorkMax system, when that time is batched and goes through a process we call closeout to lock that data down for payroll, that data can no longer be edited or adjusted within the WorkMax system. It is then fed over to Sage 100 for payroll and job costing. In Sage 300 CRE, we have a tool we call CONNECTMAX. And what CONNECTMAX does is it pulls data from the Sage database that's installed on your server, wherever your Sage 300 CRE system is hosted, and serves it up to the WorkMax cloud system on Amazon Web Services. And so CONNECTMAX links your Sage database up to the cloud where WorkMax can connect and then help manage that data. When we collect data from the field and bring it back to the cloud server and it's approved, then we push it back down through CONNECTMAX back into your Sage system through a CSV export. And so what that looks like, if I'm on Sage 300 CRE plus possibly a third-party payroll, or maybe I'm doing all my payroll within the payroll module in Sage, basically we have a mapping tool within CONNECTMAX to link up that database and those proper fields for your Sage implementation. Although we have many hundreds of Sage customers, no two are exactly the same. There are some standard fields, but then lots of companies are doing extra things or things uniquely. And so we're going to, through this custom builder, export the format that maps up with your particular implementation so that before you get your WorkMax system pushed out to the field, everything's linked up, connected, and ready for your regular payroll processing and job costs without the paper, without the spreadsheets, without rekeying and re-entering that same information. So very efficient, very slick, and very paperless. Now, in that time import area of Sage 300, essentially this import file we have linked up and already saved as the default. So once you process this and import that list, it will actually fill out the daily time cards for your Sage system automatically. In Sage 100 Contractor, we have the API integration, and essentially what that's going to do is these fields will be populated automatically with the data that we've collected over here in WorkMax. So upon that closeout and completing the approvals that you deem appropriate, that data is fed automatically into Sage 100. So very simple, very quick. We hear very commonly 75 to 80% reduction in the time it takes to manage and approve and process payroll within our customer base in integrating with their Sage system. I mentioned earlier on the top of the call, one of the key things that we want to ensure is that with WorkMax that you get the right job cost data to the right people on the right projects at the right time. And WorkMax allows you to do that. Of course, because it is Sage driven, those setups that are within Sage we're going to honor and default to. However, in WorkMax, we have some additional controls so that you can further distinguish which role an employee has, what type of permissions are they authorized to have within our system, so we can give you a little bit more control even than what Sage is going to offer, because of course you may be involving additional people that aren't ever going to touch Sage and don't need to. That becomes a very nice way of getting better data into Sage for the people that are collecting it, but right from the source and in real time. Within WorkMax, one of the things that we developed early and felt was very important, historically, again, just kind of going back, we came out with an enterprise installed server-based system called About Time Enterprise, and that was in 2003. So about 6 years ago, we started rewriting a new product in the cloud that is known as WorkMax. And what we did is we learned from everything that we had done for more than 10 years with, again, thousands of customers all over the country and the globe, in North America, and basically rewrote that feedback into this cloud product. And one of the key pieces that we started with was permission profiles. And so what this is the ability to build out a predefined permission set list for your employee roles, different people in different divisions, different levels of authorization within the system. And so again, levels of control that Sage wouldn't have for someone in the field, and certainly wouldn't have in a mobile application, we're able to help you leverage, and so that you're getting not only more accurate information, but you're not overloading or overwhelming people with things that they don't need to see or that they don't have any reason to be even looking at. One of the other things that we heard from the beginning, even back in 2003, is again, the first question we always get from companies is, I want to know where my people are at. I want to understand where those valuable assets are that are costing an hourly wage, and they are hopefully profitably earning a higher rate that I can bill for, or that is going to roll up to the overall budget and keep us in the black. But as we continue forward with our development, we heard and learned that companies were having a similar issue with their equipment or their tools. And so what we did to address that is we have the ability to digitally assign or hand off a piece of equipment from one employee or job to another right here on the mobile device. So if this particular asset is currently at Salem City Center project, I can send it back to inventory if I've dropped it back off at the office or the shop, or I can transfer it to a new employee. It was Mike Merrill, mine, at this project to Francisco, again, at the North Campus or North Campus expansion project. Again, the dates of when that's updated, when that transfer occurred, is all documented within the system. There's reporting functionality also that accompanies this, as well as the tool CONNECTMAX that we use to feed the integration with Sage 300 CRE is also a custom export utility. So you can map up and build out export lists of equipment or equipment usage. And I'll show you some samples of that here in a minute. The other thing, aside from just where are my people, where do they go to from this job to that, where's my equipment, where did it move to now, is just a general roll call. We developed this report, again, as a phase one because in the morning when management or ownership or whoever needs that visibility over the field crews can come into their desk, run this report and see whose boots are on the ground at what time, what are they working on, which device or project manager's iPad or phone are they logging it on. And then at the end of the day, even between those three projects, we also have at the bottom an absentee report. This actually shows who wasn't on a job anywhere, who didn't show up, and when's the last time that we had a punch from them. So again, visibility that gives the opportunity for management to see what's going on or possibly what's not going on a daily basis without having to physically speak to anyone or send out a text or an email or ask anyone any questions whatsoever. All right, with that, I wanted to leave the second half of our hour here to the mobile application demonstration. And so I'm going to launch up a emulator here and take just a second. While I do this, the other thing to note is that within the WorkMax platform, one of the things that we did that's a little bit unique from even within the industry or within some of the other products that are out in the marketplace is we actually wrote a native application for both the iOS and the Android platforms. And so what that means to customers is no matter what devices you have in place, our product will work directly on those devices, and this is a key thing, it can work 100% offline. So everything that I'm going to show you here today can be done and accomplished even without an internet or a data connection. And so here I am on my iPad, and as I log data, if I have a connection, just like this is showing here, updating company data. So I have a timed poll sync set up on this device. So every 30 minutes, it's going to link up with the cloud and pull in any new jobs, projects, employees, cost codes, equipment. Any of that data that's been updated in the cloud will now push down to this device and make sure that I always have the most current data available. But in this case, I'm going to come in and put a simple PIN number in. And here I am, Mike Merrill. I'm an employee working at the Liberty Safe manufacturing plant. And so I can simply clock in or out. It's a very simple workflow in just a normal time clock environment. And now that I've punched in, what it's going to do is if I was previously on a cost code that required unit entry, before it will let me pick a new code, it's going to allow me to put the quantities that I've completed of the previous cost code. So maybe I did 860 square feet of stamped concrete. Now that I've put my entry in, it will let me put in my next cost code. So let's say I'm pouring curb and gutter. Now I have the ability through what we call custom list to actually put in a union code. If this doesn't apply to you or isn't a part of your workflow, no big deal. you can skip it or just hide this from the screen, or maybe I'm a Denver working foreman in this project. Now it's allowing me to actually hit confirm and punch in to start my shift, or if for some reason I need to leave a note, a work note for the office or a message to management, I need 2 more helpers for tomorrow's pour. Now the message that's typed in here gets sent to the office. There are reports and views and dashboards that show this data. I hit save, and now all of my time, my cost coding, I put units for the previous cost code of stamped concrete, and now I'm ready to clock in. It's going to take my photo. It's also grabbing my GPS and confirming where I'm at. And because I have what we call auto sync turned on, it's going to push that data up to the cloud in real time as it happened. Now we have businesses and customers that are in mining or oil and gas exploration. They're nowhere near a signal on many of their projects. Because of that, we do not depend on the connection to do anything within the system except synchronize or share that data. And of course, once we have a signal, we'll give you the tools within the application to submit that data properly to those that need to see it. So simply what we did there is we basically put in time, cost coding, a location, we got a GPS, we got the facial recognition, and now I'm ready to go to work and pick up my trowel, start pouring that curb and gutter, or whatever my role is. Now, a question we often get is, what if my employees prefer the interface to come up in Spanish for them? So we have a language preference setting so that employees that speak Spanish primarily or want the app to come up in Spanish, all of the navigation and confirmation screens will be done in Spanish. A job name or code is a job name and a code based on the label here, and then the code that's in Sage. And so those don't get translated, but everything else within the application regarding navigation and prompts and confirmations, etc., are all in the language preference of that employee. Now another workflow that's common, and I would say it's, I don't know if it's half the time, but it's probably the most common workflow. You may have a working foreman that actually has other people on his crew or her crew. In this case, I have a list of employees available to me, so I can say Zach Brown and Carlos and Frank Rizzo are on my crew today at this particular project. Now, when I hit the end button, what it's going to do is, as we know, I was on curb and gutter before it's going to let me allocate time for myself in this crew. I need to put in the quantities, 28 lineal feet of curb and gutter, and now we're ready to pick the next code. So in this case, maybe we're doing underground conduit installation. Now, because I picked underground conduit installation, you'll see something interesting come up. What this is the equipment list. So if I have cost codes that require equipment use or could require equipment use, I have the ability to actually pull up a list of available equipment to use for, again, installing that conduit. Now, if I'm using, let's say I'm using this mini excavator, Bobcat, I can hit the info tab there to the right, and it will actually bring up all the information on that particular piece of equipment. It can load the photo up of it, so I can see that I'm certainly using the right equipment. There is a barcode scanning capability. So if you look in the top right, if I hit the barcode and I have a barcode on my equipment, it'll actually bring that up. I'm looking at my screen here. So in any case, whichever method makes sense, there's a search and sort. So if I type in backhoe, you see here, it brings up whatever spelling search comes up in that list. So maybe I am using the backhoe. So I hit select. Again, with the union codes, if this doesn't apply, it won't come up because it won't be in your setup. I skipped that. And now myself as a working foreman and my crew are here on this project installing underground conduit using the backhoe. And again, if I need to leave another note, I can simply hit confirm. And it takes my facial recognition, it confirms my location, compares it to this job site, and makes sure that there's no infractions on any of that. If there are infractions, then we have alerts and reports within the system that will show that and bring them to your attention. Now, there are products out there in the market that say, you know, they have facial recognition, and what it simply is it takes a photo and allows you to manually, visually do a comparison of those pictures. That's not facial recognition, that's taking pictures and then giving you the ability to look at them and see if they look the same to you. We don't want the human error or human element to come into play. Some of our customers have thousands of employees, or even companies that have 50 or 100. A lot of times the office personnel may not know every crew member or every foreman that they would recognize. And so we want the software and the system to manage that data for you and allow you to have that tool at your disposal and bring it to your attention when there's an issue. The next thing, so we've gone through real-time punching in and out of individuals and crews. We've shown the Spanish language. We've shown facial recognition, and then I'll show you in the what we call our control center, where all this data comes in a minute, what it looks like when there's a GPS infraction or when the facial recognition doesn't match up. But before that, I'm going to get to our third workflow within the time tracking system, and that is this timesheet. What the timesheet is it's another option you have at your disposal within the application. And what you can do is, for an individual or a group of employees, again, what I have turned on here is the setting for Mike Merrill when he logs in to remember his last selected crew. That's why Carlos and Zach and Frank were pre-selected. Now maybe I'm managing multiple crews, and so I've got Andre and Carl and Larry that I'm logging time for, and maybe as a foreman I'm already on the clock, but I'm assigning these three to do something else. I can hit next. What this gives me is an entry screen for those three employees that I picked to put in a digital time entry for one or more days. You saw it had 5 before. I can have it default to a weekly view or a daily. And then we have a default start time. And I can change that if for some reason it changes from what our standard is. In this project, 7 a.m., maybe we're working 4/10s. So I have all the ability to change and adjust that here. But this crew today, let's say for our date is the 6th, I'm just going to give this a name, 11/6/19. And then I'm going to pick a cost code. So I've assigned those 3 employees to install light fixtures. And so they've worked 10 hours. I'm filling this out after the fact, or when I have a chance. Again, this is for those companies that want a digital, basically a digital time card. Now that I've done that, I can hit create, and what it does, it brings up those shift records for those 3 employees that I've selected. Put the cost code. I can put quantities of the light fixtures that they've installed if I want. Maybe they did 38 for the day. Again, here's the start and stop times. There's an opportunity for Andre as an individual employee to come in here and sign off on his time. So those field approvals are available in and throughout our time application. I also have the ability to hit the select button up here as the foreman, and I can hit manager sign off, and I can sign off on all 3 of those. So these are not required by the app, but they may be required or something that you want to have happen within your workflow, and so they're made available to you. In this case, maybe Carl Yes, he had 10 hours, but within that 10 hours, he only did light fixtures for 6. And so what our system allows you to do, and this is to allocation after the fact, I can hit the add button and it brings up the remaining 4 hours that I didn't allocate yet and lets me pick a new cost code. And he was doing plate coverings. And then I can even put the quantity that he did there. He did 67. And then again, same with the notes. So I can break that down. So his shift has 2 different codes. I could do the same for Larry, and so on. Maybe it was 2 of them, 2 hours of light fixtures, and then for this 8, he was doing trenching. And again, you'll notice different terminology for different unit types for different cost codes. So WorkMax allows flexibility for you to assign the quantity type per cost code. So on the trenching, I have lineal feet. We did 38 of those. Let me make it a different number so it doesn't match the plates below. So 33 lineal feet of trenching, 38 light fixtures. I hit save, and now my digital time after the fact, multiple cost codes, quantities are put in. I could put equipment again also to the crew, or I can come back in and put equipment for the individual if they needed to add equipment there as well. So very simple. Maybe he was using a cordless drill to put those plate covers on, and I want to track that. So I've tracked time and equipment, production. After the fact, I've done it in real time, and I've had the ability to sign off and approve that time as an individual or as a supervisor of those employees. Now, if I go back to the real-time workflow, I have the ability to review clock entries here, and I can do that by calendar day. So this is reviewing any punches that have happened on the device for that day. You'll see here, I've already approved these as a manager. I could come to an individual for Russ Gray here. He can hit the employee button here. What happens is these signatures follow this data, that shift total and everything, with the cost coding and production and equipment back into the cloud WorkMax system that we call our control center. So that you have visibility and reporting on 100% of what's being reported in the field. All right. So on the time side, we've done most of the functions that the field would need to see and utilize. I'm going to go briefly into equipment and show you that within our equipment or assets module, we have 3 distinct areas. The one of inventory, of course, is what do I have within my system that's available. Now, this inventory list can be divisionalized, can be done by crew or project, so it can be segmented appropriately so that when an individual logs in to their through their tablet with their PIN or through their browser with their email address and password, they can be narrowed down to see the proper list for them. But in this case, if I hit inventory, again, I can look at a photo of that and any of the information that's ancillary on any of the tools or equipment. So that's the inventory tab. Usage and assignment. So with usage, what it allows us to do is I can, very much like the digital time card, I can fill out after the fact what equipment I use for how long or what tools, which project. If I want to track the cost code, I can. That's not required. But essentially, as an employee, what equipment is on my project and did I log within the system. This is one that I'd already filled out. If I want to add another piece to that after the fact, I can simply say I was using the MIG welder, and it adds it to my existing list. So I can append that as I'm going. Again, this is for a specific date and time. I hit save, and now that sheet is updated to 4 instead of 3. If I want to start a new one, I simply hit add. I'm using the Mini X, the rig saw or the ring saw, and this DeWalt compressor. So those 3 assets, I can put the quantity of days. We have some companies say we do them a month at a time, or we do them a week at a time. That's completely up to you. I have control over what I'm, the length of time, because again, this is a digital time card that we're referencing here. So, but it's for the equipment as opposed to an employee. So my equipment and the date, or basically this is just a free-form entry area to distinguish this sheet from any other sheets that may be created on the same device or by the same employees. Now, if next week I need to use the same thing, again, I can put unique hours per piece. Again, if I didn't populate that in one bulk area, maybe it was 10 hours on this day. So again, it's just very much like a spreadsheet. Gives me the ability to log the equipment use, total number of hours, again, after the fact. Now that is, again, after the fact entry. The third method of utilizing the equipment within the module is assignment. And so what this is up here, I have my name based on my PIN number. I have the project name, Liberty Safe Manufacturing Plant. And then I have a filter here. So right now I don't have any that are on this site, but if I come here, it's going to open up where all of those pieces of equipment are at this current time. Let's say this case backhoe needs to be moved to a different employee or project. I can check on it, I hit the transfer button, and now it's showing me as the employee, it's showing the project that it's at, and I can reassign it to this El Dorado and Interlocking project. Now I haven't changed it from me, the employee, yet. I could keep it, and now I've taken it to a new project, or I can hit assign to a new employee and say, Chad Miller now has that equipment, and I reassign that to him. So what that will do is that will update that in the mobile application. It will update it on the cloud. It will update it on the reporting. And so from there forward until Chad moves that to another individual, it will show up under his name in this list. So again, there's maybe 10 pieces of equipment or so in this particular view. We still have barcoding, so if you want to select a piece of equipment or a tool based on barcodes, that's not a problem. If it's a job box or a tool kit or something that comes with multiple pieces of equipment that are included in one, we have the ability to track it that way as well. And then the last method of equipment tracking we already showed and went through on the time side. However, just to go back and regroup a little bit, I come in, I've got my stamped concrete again, 250 square feet. And now if I pick again a cost code, and we know that we had trench, I can search, trenching, backfill, and compaction, up comes the equipment list. So this is the other method. In real time, using the equipment as needed on the project. And again, I'm using this backhoe. I hit select, and now I go on my way with the time logging with the equipment as it shows here. So in this particular case, the difference between this and the timesheet is this time on this equipment use will match the time on my shift that is being logged for this crew. So the equipment is basically being clocked in along with the employees that are utilizing it for the cost code. When they get done with that cost code in trenching or backfill, if they clock out or switch to something different, and the equipment use is no longer required, when they clock in on that next task or activity, the equipment will also be clocked out at the same time as them. So we're actually logging real-time usage of the equipment based on those same things that those employees are logging. All right, so with that, I wanted to bring up a few reports and look at what some of this data ends up looking like. So in the system, we've got in and out punches for a duration of time, a date and time, job or project, cost code, the pay rate, whether it's regular overtime, double time, the assets, and then again, these approval levels, employee, manager in the field, and then office 1 and 2. So we have 4 levels of approval before the batch and closeout process. So really there's an additional level there, but these are all able to be done with signatures and date and time stamps. But each of these are reported in this weekly time card for each day of the week and totaled at the bottom. So 39 hours and 55 minutes, so pretty darn accurate pay stub based collection of time. So we're going to feed this over to your payroll system within Sage or your third-party payroll, and then the appropriate rates and everything that are set up there will be applied to this total. One other question that comes up, this time can be rounded. So we do have rounding rules within the app. You see here, if it was to the nearest 5 minutes, that's why they're showing just under a full 40, because they didn't work 40 or get close enough to 40 for it to figure that. So that's just a standard weekly time card report. We have a job detailed hours report showing, again, what cost code was worked on by which employee on this particular project, whether there's any overtime or double time, etc. Just standard reporting. Now these, of course, these are canned reports that the system has, and they're there for your use. But of course, we're feeding all this data to Sage as it is, and so the reports that you're used to using, if you've got Crystal reporting or SQL report writer tools that you've utilized to come up with custom reports, we're still going to feed that same data to Sage for you to enjoy those. But again, these are also there and available for you. Within the forms module, which we have not covered within this webinar, I'll just briefly state, we can do things like expense tracking or per diem, take pictures of receipts, total it up in a mini spreadsheet within the form, have signatures. So that accompanies the time and equipment use data as well. So that's a per diem one. This is just a daily field log where they've taken photos of the project, answered questions, put in quantities, and then signed off also. So these are custom labels and fields that you can build into the form within our form builder. These will mirror and match the same data points that you're collecting on paper or in a spreadsheet or possibly some application. But the beauty here is that this ties this to the same platform that you're getting your equipment usage, like this report shows, readings, hours. Now, this is another thing within the equipment module. Maybe it was 9 hours on site, but this actual hours used could have been 8 or different. Like in this case, this dual tank compressor was there for 34 hours, but was only utilized for 30. So if you're billing based on this or billing based on that, we do give you both totals so you can decide which one is appropriate for what you're doing. This one, it was on site, this cat grater for 58 hours, but it was only being operated for 8. So lots of powerful reports and tools, injury accident reports. You need to take photos of an injury or again, get signatures of witnesses, automatic GPS stamps of where the form is filled out. Lots of different other data points that we can help you capture besides just time and equipment use. So, and I want to make sure we have a couple minutes for questions at the end. The last thing I'll touch on very briefly, within the CONNECTMAX utility, we have this export formatter. Again, these are in this particular in this particular form or export file, asset time export. So this is all the time on given assets for date range. Again, if there were any notes, they were left here. So these are just custom exports that can be built by you within the tool. Here's a payroll export. Again, this is what would feed into Sage 300 CRE within the format that's appropriate for that system. There's 354 lines of time and labor and production and cost coding and pay rate and pay type and cost code. So all of the associated data for payroll and job cost can be exported. So anything you collect in WorkMax, we're able to get the data out into a format like this, or a canned report, or again, through the integration, we're going to feed that back over to your Sage system so you can leverage that data appropriately and properly. So with that, I'll just open it up to Q&A for the last couple of minutes here, and we'll have Shannon Corrigan, our marketing director at About Time Technologies for WorkMax. And Shannon, have any questions come in?
Yeah, we have a couple, and feel free to go ahead and submit them if anything comes to mind as we're going through these questions. First one is do you have to have internet service or phone range for employees to enter data into the mobile app?
Okay, great question. Thank you for whoever asked that. So no, you do not have to have internet connection. Again, some products claim to be app-based, but there are dependencies on a connection for certain parts of their app or for things to process. This is not the case. We have written what we call native code on each platform, so each device operates independently and offline and then connects to the cloud when it's able to share the data that's collected. Thank you. Is there more questions?
Yes. Are we limited to just tracking hours, assets, jobs, and cost codes? What if we also wanted to track per diems or leave codes?
Okay, great. Yeah, so just like we showed kind of in the workflow, per diem or leave codes like PTO or bereavement, jury duty, those can be tracked within the custom lists. The area where we showed the Denver working foreman or and also per diem, yes or no. So those were custom lists that we had, so those can be tracked absolutely within the application.
The last one is, do you calculate California overtime and do union pay rates?
Great question. We absolutely do. And if you'll remember back on the digital time card, one of the things that's unique to this application from some other systems is on our digital time card, we actually have a beginning and end of shift logged within the system. And so because we default to a start time within the time card, I'll just pull it up here really quick so it's visual for whoever asked the question. Back to time review, and I'm going to review the timesheet. I'm going to pick this one. So right here, this start time, and we did this very specifically. We have a lot of customers in California or, throughout the country, and some of them have similar labor laws. You must, in fact, it's actually there's legislation that, this is a Department of Labor rule, is that we need to have when the shift started and when it ended. So even though we put 10 hours, we know when to start the 10 hours because we have a beginning. And then because we have that in the total, we can give you the end of shift. So it would be till 6 p.m. So that does meet California labor law requirements for documenting beginning and end of shift. And as far as the overtime rules, absolutely. Some of our larger, in fact, one of our largest customers is in California. They have over 6,000 field laborers, and they track 100% of their field labor within our application, and over 100 trade unions, very dynamic and complex. And we track 100% of it within our application and feed it into their payroll and job cost. So.
There was a little bit of clarification that came through for this question. They also wanted to know if you can handle overtime for consecutive days worked.
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. So we can. In fact, we have a setting within, and this is our, just through the cloud here, it's our login to the WorkMax system. Within our product here, I have my overtime rules engine. So I have California overtime just built out as a sample. So right here, 7 consecutive days starts after. It starts at the 0 hour. The 7 consecutive days is on. So yeah, we can automatically track that and apply the appropriate rules for that. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike. We don't have any other questions. If you want to wrap it all up, here's to you, Mike.
All right, thank you. So I have our contact information up on the screen. We are proud members of TUG and have been for, I think I figured this year, I was at I wanted to say it was my 15th straight TUG conference. So we often have opportunities to present and share our solution there, but it's a wonderful community and we're thankful to be a part of it. And we surely appreciate your support in joining us today. And we look forward to helping you cure that paper addiction or spreadsheet addiction if that's what it is. But in any case, these tools are real. We have companies everywhere using them. They're saving a lot of money and creating a lot better environment and workflow for office personnel and people that are having to manage all of these piles of papers and digital files that are now very simply just fed back into their Sage payroll and job costs. And we hope we can help you to do the same thing. I'll turn it to Charlotte. Thank you, Charlotte.
No problem. Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you, Shannon, as well for the presentation today. Everything was great. And we do have a survey at the very end of the presentation once you close out, if you don't mind taking that for us. And if you want to share your contact information with WorkMax and the About Time team, feel free to enter all of that information there on that survey. And thank you again for the presentation, and thanks again to everyone for attending.